The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you. Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the giant space butthole that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yeah. So, this week we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which is kind of a wild pull to just go into the third movie in a series.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the first two. What's up with that?
And especially considering, the vast catalog of Marvel, MCU movies. One could argue this is like the, 20-something entry in the series also. But thankfully, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are pretty standalone and also, even amongst themselves, still pretty...
self-contained.
I enjoyed the first two. I have not watched them since they were in theaters, and I did not revisit them for this, but I was still able to, follow what's going on without, I think the main thing that you would need to know is that the whole stuff with Gamora, Star-Lord, Peter Quill, and Gamora had a relationship over the course of the first two movies, and then...
it kind of abruptly ended with her death in the Infinity Saga, I guess we could call it.
Yeah, so she ended up being revived, but at a previous point in her memory, so she doesn't remember the relationship with Peter, and so that obviously causes tension where, he still loves her, and she's like, I barely know you, I'm not... And so, so they can't get on the same page, and that becomes, a big plot point in this as we go.
It's very interesting how this is, kind of a breakup movie, even though technically they never broke up.
Yeah.
But it's still like, it will come to the point where they're just going to have to learn to live with themselves, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
But, so I guess spoiler alerts, if you didn't already watch it, which, I feel like if you're watching it here. And also another reason why we've kind of started here is this is the most Frankensteinian of all of the prior movies, even though I would say that the first Iron Man and even Captain America had Frankenstein elements.
Yeah, true.
This definitely is the most, right?
Yeah. So this movie is focused on Rocket Raccoon, and we will get his whole backstory and everything.
Whoa. He's not a raccoon. Until he has to acknowledge it at some point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is, his story is very, very much a Frankenstein story. So, several of you have reached out and been like, hey, are you going to talk about this? And, of course, we had to. I recently watched it for a second time, several months ago, and I had remembered that people were requesting it, and then I was like, yeah, this definitely is. So, I was glad to add it to the schedule and talk about it here, because there's a lot going on in here.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and put out the warnings, the trigger warnings first. If you don't like animal cruelty, this is not the movie for you. I mean, if you like animal cruelty, get the fuck out anyway. But
right? Yeah.
I'm just saying it's going to be a rough ride.
Yeah. That's definitely the primary content warning for this. Is we're going to see a lot of medical experiments on animals, and then just the subsequent suffering of the various experimented upon animals.
Yeah. Also some body horror. Once again on the animal side. So.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens when we get there, but let's go ahead and get this party started. So we immediately. Oh, by the way, also just have Kleenexes. if you're a crier, this is going to be rough on you too.
Yeah. This is definitely a tearjerker of a movie.
Yeah. Somehow, some way they did it. But anyway, so we're going to start off. We're basically get some like quiet but ominous music playing. We get a scene of a bunch of baby raccoons being all cute and cuddling each other. Then we see someone walking up to a grate, and all the other raccoons kind of retreat. There's one that doesn't. It is grabbed. We will find out that this is Rocket as Creep starts playing in the background. By the way, what a soundtrack!
That's definitely, I mean, like all the James Gunn movies, but especially the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, where like, you know, there's music is such a big part of them because Star-Lord has his Walkman and all that.
Right. But this one especially, like, it's hitting. There is popular music on like every major beat.
Yeah, and like you said, we have like the baby raccoon, and then we get like a time lapse and see that it is Rocket. We're now in present day. He's listening to. Peter has gotten a Zune, not an iPod,
which is still an outdated technology.
yeah. And you know, Rocket is listening to a strange. It's actually Radiohead, but it's not the album version of Creep. It's like an acoustic version. I'm not sure what it's from, but it's a really nice kind of different version.
Right. It's kind of playing over some of the. We get kind of a minor introduction to like Mantis dancing, and Drax is like, only idiots dance.
Yeah. We'll get a whole sort of tour of the Guardians' like new headquarters that's called Nowhere,
which is it featured prominently in the other two movies, and is the head of a deceased celestial, I believe they say, or god.
Yeah. So we see everybody kind of like it's becoming sort of like a little community. So they're building stuff. You know, everyone's working on setting things up, and we just get Rocket sort of listening to music as he walks around the town. Showing us all the characters.
And we get an introduction to two newer members of the Guardians, being Cosmo, Kraglin, who's been in the other two movies. He's a prominent role.
Yeah,
Cosmo
Kraglin,
is, by the way, a telekinetic dog.
Yeah, Cosmo is basically Laika. Wasn't that the Russian cosmonaut dog? But for some reason in this, her name's Cosmo instead.
Right, and she's 60-something years old and still alive.
And she has like telepathy and can speak, you know, through that. And yeah, Kraglin is James Gunn's brother Sean, but he is also, and in the movie he is the character who received Yondu's mohawk and whistle arrow thing.
Yeah.
We'll be introduced to them. We will also ultimately Rocket ends up getting to Peter's house, and they get in an argument.
Drunk.
Yeah, he is super drunk and mad that Rocket's listening to his Zune, and then he just passes out, just falls over unconscious in the middle of a fight. And then we get like the other Guardians kind of all come in and pick him up, and they carry him. Or no, he's not in his room because they carry him to his room. I'm not sure.
Right, he was in like the bar, the Nowhere's bar.
Yeah.
By the way, this is a great thing cut for the not the preview, basically for the television ads. Right?
Yeah.
Just so they could show it, and it's like, oh no, Peter Quill dies or gets horribly injured. No, he's just incredibly drunk.
Yeah, and we get one of the things that Guardians of the Galaxy loves to do is a good wide slow-mo shot of the whole gang walking towards the camera. We'll get it several times in this movie, and we've had it several times in the previous ones. But here, you know, of course, we've got Peter being carried, so it's a little less triumphant, intentionally so.
Right. And I do he does touch as he's taken to his room. He reaches out and grabs Nebula, who is Gamora's sister, Gamora being his love interest, and just says, I love you, thinking that she's Gamora.
Yeah.
And there's obviously, there's a love triangle, but not.
Yeah.
In that Nebula obviously has feelings for Peter. Peter has feelings for Nebula. Peter also has feelings for Gamora, who no longer has feelings for Peter.
Yeah, and it's like Peter can't see his feelings for Nebula because he's still hung up on Gamora, and Nebula, because she's so hard-edged and stuff, she's not like ready to accept that she might possibly have feelings for a person.
Yeah, there's a term for this in anime. It's called yandere, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. And so we get like, they kind of all tuck Peter in, and everybody is they all feel bad for him. They know like this is a really weird, unprecedented situation he's in, and it's sad that he's having to deal with it. Of course, he's going to drink himself into oblivion because what else can he do? And
of course that leads to a conversation between Rocket and Nebula, where Rocket asks Nebula, "Hey, how are you going to fix Quill?" Right?
Yeah, and she's like, "That's I can't. He has to fix himself."
Right, and of course he also shows off the brand new gravity boots that they're clearly going to use. It's like they're setting up everything right now, which I appreciate that about James Gunn.
Yeah,
like, he will set it up and pay it off.
There's so many moving pieces in this, so many like little things that come back to pay off later in the movie.
Oh, by the way, if you want to know why we haven't introduced the rest of the cast, it's because they have big fucking names. Like every person in this is a star, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
you want to? You want to go over it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you're aware of the MCU, and like this movie is long. I don't think we need to get into all the cast. We'll talk about the characters as we get to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know the whole MCU deal here. So from them Rocket and Nebula talking, we go back to Cosmo and Kraglin, and as you were saying, with like little things paying off later, we get the beginning of the ongoing gag between Cosmo and Kraglin.
Kraglin's trying to get his arrow to work properly.
Yeah, they're basically having like a target shooting competition, but Kraglin is learning how to use the arrow and not doing well, and Cosmo has like perfect telepathy and is able to just do whatever she wants. And Kraglin, in his frustration, calls her a bad dog.
No!
The worst thing you can say. I mean, practically a slur if you're a dog.
I mean, I think it is, frankly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, she's very upset by this, and Kraglin just kind of digs his heels in, and he's like,
nope.
Yeah, I mean, I had to say it because it's true. You're a bad dog.
Yeah. I will say one thing for the actress who plays Cosmo, because she does need recognition because she's amazing.
Yeah.
So, Maria Bakalova, she played Borat's daughter in the subsequent Borat movie.
Okay, yeah.
That in 2020.
Yeah, so she's got that little bit of a Russian accent and that kind of matter-of-fact voice and stuff. She's perfect for this, yeah.
We go from their little tiff. Once again, Mantis is now asking Nebula, how do we fix this, right?
Yeah, we get this like kind of comical bit where like she's like, Mantis, you could just touch him. You can just touch him and make him feel better.
Right.
And
she's like, ooh, I'm his sister. Ew. Not like that, silly.
Yeah, like half the crew thinks this is a sex thing, and the other half's like, no, she has that power where she can touch you and make you feel whatever.
Right, just like she made Drax fall in love with his sock, which, okay, that's James Gunn right there, baby.
Yeah.
He's showing who he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so, Drax is like, well, I guess someone else could do that other touch thing, and like, no, that was never on the table. We're not talking about, sexually satisfying Peter Quill. That's not going to fix things.
Nope.
We need to make him feel happier, which is a whole different thing.
Right, that's a temporary happiness, not a long-lasting one, right?
Yeah. And so at that point, we see a completely golden guy flying through space, and crashing into nowhere. We'll eventually learn his name is Adam or Warlock.
Yeah. Or Adam Warlock if you're nasty and read the comics.
So yeah, he crashes into nowhere, immediately grabs Rocket, and there's like a tussle. Rocket tries to get away, and Gamora like intercepts and starts fighting. Adam.
It's a whole thing, right? Where everybody eventually gets involved.
Yeah, the whole crew, even drunk-ass Peter gets involved, but Adam is mega powerful, and they just wreck house. They're flying around nowhere, smashing buildings, crushing things.
Specifically shooting, like, Rocket in the chest.
Mm-hmm. Rocket gets hit, and So Peter and Mantis rush to help Rocket. They use like a med pack to try to stabilize him as the fight continues.
Does the opposite.
Yeah, like things get worse as soon as they put it on, and they're panicking. Meanwhile, Nebula sneaks up behind Adam, impales him with this. Yeah, because she's got that big one of her arms can kind of turn into whatever, so she stabs him with that.
I like how he's like, that hurt, and she's just like, yeah, I feel bad for you, man. Whatever.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. I've like because he's clearly very dumb because he's like a new thing. Like he doesn't understand a lot. Yeah, but he's obviously on the side of the bad guys here, so he, we obviously are to view him as an enemy, but like, you kind of feel bad for him as well because he doesn't quite know what he's doing.
Okay, so do you want to go have a little bit of comic book 101 with Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. I figured we would get plenty of that in this.
Okay, so the thing I find interesting is that they wait until after the Infinity Saga to bring in the Atom/Warlock character, right? Because in the original Infinity Saga, like, he was the main opposition, effectively, aside from the other heroes, to Thanos. Like, it was kind of their fight. Whereas in this version of the MCU, Adam Warlock has nothing to do with the Infinity Stones effectively at all. Okay?
Okay.
And another thing is, this version treats Aisha, who is the leader of the Sovereign, and their high priestess, she'll be called. Originally, Adam Warlock created her, but in this version, she's his mother.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of interesting play happening here. It makes sense for the MCU. Obviously, if you're a super comics nerd, sometimes this kind of stuff will make you angry. Just get over it. It is what it is. Have fun.
It's also kind of they're sort of a weird addition to this movie. I mean, I think especially Adam, there's some compelling stuff here. There's almost a parallel between him and Rocket in that, he's also a creation who doesn't know what he's doing and everything. But
he has the parent, right? He has the love. Yeah.
But, like, because we'll eventually get to, the High Evolutionary being sort of like the main antagonist of this, I could see a version of this movie where Warlock and his mother are just gone, and the movie would basically play out the same. But I think there's still some thematic stuff that makes him worthwhile. And I think he's an interesting character for sure. It's just strange. Like, they just exist on like the outskirts of the main story. They're never quite there. He does get a nice moment at the end that kind of brings it all together, but other than that, he's just never quite as important to the story as you want him to be, I guess.
Yeah. In fact, you're 100% right. I mean, because even when they interact with the story, it's very minimal, like seconds long, and it's mostly for Groot's like, kind of not growth, but it is for Groot's growth, but it's basically say, hey, this guy's going to be in later movies, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Definitely setting him up for the future.
I mean, I guess he does set the plot into motion too, though. So
yeah. Injuring Rocket here is definitely like a big, sends us on the path for this movie.
Right.
And so sure, obviously, as we're kind of alluding to here, Nebula believes that she has killed him. But as like everyone rushes over to help Rocket, he gets up and flies away and escapes.
Right. Now Rocket doesn't do that. That's Warlock. But
yes, Warlock does.
But Nebula, she runs in on Peter and Mantis trying to use the bad pack on Rocket. She's like, no, whatever you do, take that off of him now. She somehow knows that there's some other technology involved where basically tampering with this proprietary technology will actually cause a self-destruct. Within Rocket.
And so while Rocket is laying there unconscious, we go to the first of what will be many flashbacks as we learn where Rocket came from.
And this hurts so bad.
This whole backstory, I mean, is just heartbreaking.
Yeah. We basically see a creature having its head shaved and cut into. This will be Rocket. Yeah,
the baby raccoon we saw at the beginning. They're doing experiments. We eventually see the like freshly sewn up raccoon dropped into a cage where he meets 3 other animals who have also been experimented on.
One is a otter with robot arms.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is a walrus in a wheelchair, basically, or with wheel legs.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the cutest and most terrifying,
Yes.
which is the bunny with spider legs.
Yes. And like a weird lower jaw that's all robotic as well. Like, yeah, she's definitely the most body modded, and also the most like damaged. Like, they can all talk because of the things that have been done to them, but like the otter is definitely like talks like a human, like just full vocabulary, sounds pretty normal.
The walrus seems a little bit.
He sounds like a dumb human. Like he's still mostly there, but he's just kind of just kind of a little slow, but just a friendly guy. And then the rabbit is, talks in like weird, missing a lot of words and just kind of like this stilted, like that she's just sort of learning how to talk.
Right, even though she's been there longer than our friend Rocket here.
Yeah, she seems like she may be the first. Like each one is like a better version.
Yeah.
I think I would say it would be rabbit and then walrus and then otter, and then now Rocket being
It makes the most sense, right?
Yeah.
But they're all friendly. They're all cute.
Mm-hmm.
This is all horrifying but cuddly at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the otter, who will become Lila, takes a dirty rag and kind of cleans Rocket's head wound.
Yeah, like this group is bonding right away. They're really sweet, and they've, these are our Frankenstein monsters, and it's kind of the one sort of like nice and sweet thing about this is that they at least have each other. Like, the thing that every other Frankenstein monster is always wanting is someone like him, and they at least have that right away.
They have, 3 others at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have friends. Not crying.
Yeah. So we go straight from that back to the present where Nebula is working on Rocket and is like, okay, there's a kill switch built into his system.
Yeah,
and they're like, what kind of
tampering? He's going to die.
Yeah, because the information in here indicates that Rocket is proprietary technology owned by OrgoCorp.
Property of OrgoCorp.
Yeah, he's got a serial number here, 89P13.
Mm-hmm. All right, so OrgoCorp, clearly they have to have the information for him. So immediately Peter Quill's like, great, we got a heist going. I'm all about heists. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, because Rocket is still deteriorating, and our medical technology is not going to work because of the kill switch. So we got to go. We got to get there. So now we've kind of set up our premise for like the present tense part of the movie.
Right, and we get a fun little bit where Drax is like, we're going to go kill them all. And Peter's like, no. And eventually talks Drax down to just killing one stupid guy who no one loves.
Yeah.
But also that's very sad.
Yeah, Peter's like, now you've bummed me out. This is...
Right.
So the main crew is all kind of saddling up. Quill's like, all right.
Cosmo and Kraglin are both put in charge of Nowhere.
Yeah. And, of course, they're continuing to argue about the bad dog thing.
Take it back!
Yeah. So we get the crew all getting in the ship and heading to Orgo. And while they're traveling, we get another flashback of Rocket sort of bonding with the other creatures.
Right. Over since you've been gone.
Yeah. They're dancing. They're having a good time. Like, but it's a brief scene, but it's mostly just to establish they're continuing to get close as time goes on.
Right. It ends with Lila saying, "It's good to have friends." Which, that's, by the way, prepare to cry, because that one's going to make you cry, and it tells you everything you need to know. Yeah, it's like, we're all going to die. So
yes. Yeah. So we go from that back to the present, but not to the Guardians. We are now at Arete Labs, where the High Evolutionary is berating the High Priestess, Aisha, Adam's mom.
She's like, Adam, my poor baby. Look what they did to my poor child.
Yeah. And basically it comes down to the High Evolutionary is like, so you are both my creations and you have failed me.
And you're both idiots.
I'm disappointed. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to make good on this. You got to go get, 89P13 and capture him. Yeah. And if not, I'm going to destroy you and your entire civilization because I'm your maker and I can do that.
Right, and the only reason I made you in the first place was because I just wanted something really pretty to look at. Right?
Yeah.
They were experiments in aesthetics, is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess this is our first... Well, we sort of saw the High Evolutionary when he, got the raccoon at the beginning, but... so, yeah, we have this man that's in, a kind of technological suit, right. And his face is...
Stretched?
Yeah, around the... It looks like it's been, cut and...
sewn back on.
Yeah, it's, there's a little bit of, a leather faciness to it, but it's a little bit more mobile.
I think this is meant to be a reference to RoboCop, because it's so much like Murphy.
Yeah, and there is a point later, I think someone calls him a RoboCop, as an insult or something, but... it's it's just kind of subtly horrific. He still mostly looks human, but he's just not quite right.
Oh, and by the way, in the flashbacks to the past, he does not have this. He looks just like a normal human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's clear that as he's working on evolution with other experiments, he's also doing things to himself.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he sure is. So anyway, it turns out he does know that they're going to go, that the Guardians are going to go to Orgo Corp, specifically the Orgo Scope, but he is still sending the Sovereign after them as just an insurance policy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we go back to the Guardians where they're, still headed towards the Orgo Scope.
The Orgo Scope is in fact a giant space butthole.
Yes. And, of course, Quill is blaming himself that Rocket got injured. If I hadn't been drunk, everybody that I love, dies or leaves. And Mantis is like, you have a grandpa back on Earth that you've never gone to see. You were kidnapped from him.
Right.
He lost you. You should come to him. And, Quill's like, no, I don't need to feel things, right? I have too many feelings right now. Don't give me more.
And you're the only family I need, right? Because Mantis is his biological half-sister.
Yeah. So he kind of shuts down the feelings, and that kind of becomes an ongoing gag as well. As Quill does not want to feel.
Right. He's trying to avoid that if at all possible, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, though. I understand because his introduction was basically his mom dying of cancer.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he's definitely suffered a lot in the course of these 3 movies.
Right. In the last movie, he lost his father figure, so both of them.
Yeah. But so the crew is getting close to the Orgoscope, but before they can get there, the ship is docked and boarded by Ravagers.
Sylvester Stallone?
Yes. Yep, Sylvester Stallone, and even more importantly, Gamora.
Whoa!
Yeah,
that's the one we didn't want to meet.
Yeah, so there's this whole thing are we gonna fight? Are the Ravagers trying? The Ravagers kind of they're pirates basically, right? Yeah. So are they gonna strip the ship for parts, or what's gonna happen here?
Nope. But turns out Nebula paid them to be here.
Yeah, she's hired on a few Ravagers as mercenaries to help infiltrate the Orgoscope. And so, obviously Peter's a little shaken up by that. I'm going to have to work with Gamora, and we have this weird tension that we've not figured out. But before they can really deal with that at all, we go into another flashback where we see, baby Rocket getting very intelligent very quickly. He is writing all these complicated equations on a chalkboard. And the evolutionary is talking about that he's working on a planet. It's going to be a perfect civilization. He's going to call it Counter Earth.
Right. And Rocket's kind of excited. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to see a new planet." And the High Evolutionary is like, "Oh no, you're not going to." Well, we'll see, but I don't think so.
Yeah. And he's like, "Well, let me show you what I'm working on now." So he takes him to.
And as he's doing so, the Rocket, showing his early klepto tendencies, steals a bunch of tools.
Yes, yeah. So they go to this the main lab. We see like a big science pod where they, the evolutionaries people place like a turtle. They start up the machine, and it evolves into a humanoid turtle type thing, like all of his other creations are.
Right, but this is angry. It's real angry.
Yeah, it immediately, like, as soon as it gets like big, it just turns violent and is like pounding on the glass and everything. And the evolutionary is like, there's still something wrong with the process. Every time it's like, this last step, something happens, and this is the result.
Right, and then they just burn the creature to death in fire.
And then little baby Rocket, in like baby talk, starts looking at the machine, and he's like, I think I see the problem here. And it's really well written, because it's like, science jargon,
right.
That kind of like reverse the polarity stuff. But it's also in baby talk, and like
right.
it works. Like, it's a really good mix of it. That like clearly he doesn't have the full scope of language to talk like a grown up, but he also really does understand this stuff.
It's almost at an instinctual level, right?
Yeah, and of course the evolutionary is incredibly surprised about this. Like, how did this dumb baby that I created, how has he figured something out that I can't figure out?
Right. And literally the result basically is just flip it over. Reverse the polarity, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we go from that back to the present, where our crew is floating through space, and they're each in an individual brightly colored spacesuit. Like, they look like Power Rangers or something, basically.
Pretty much. They're all color coordinated, I think, to their flesh tone or their primary color.
Yeah. So they land on the surface of the orgoscope, which is...
Quill is trying to get back together with Gamora the entire time.
Yeah, so they're walking around, like, the orgoscope is like made of flesh, but is like a planet. So they're we have Nebula using a laser and like trying to cut a hole, and while that's going on, there's a row of light up buttons on everyone's arm that correspond to the colors of all the suits. So Quill presses the blue button to talk to Gamora.
She's in the blue suit, makes sense.
Yeah, and he has this very emotional conversation with her about how, upsetting it is that she doesn't remember him, and he's like, I understand, but I miss you so much, and like, I want to try. Maybe we can figure this out.
Yeah,
maybe I can remind
his heart
you
out to her the entire time.
Yeah, and she's like, no, I don't even. Yeah, you are in love with someone who doesn't exist anymore. Right. And at some point in the conversation, she says, "Listen, Quinn," and he's like, "Quill." Yeah. And it's like, that's how much I don't know you, is I don't even know your name.
Well, it's almost like, though, she does know the name and intentionally chose the wrong one just to hurt him.
Yeah. And it seems like that's sort of, sometimes that ends up being the thing. Like, if you can't let someone down gently, if you hurt them enough, they will finally get it. And I think I see this as her trying to do a kindness to, like, break it off for him. Like,
right. But she's just too rough around the edges to just be tactful about it, I guess.
Yeah. But at about this point in the conversation, the rest of the crew all starts chiming in that they have heard all of this. And Quill's like, "Why didn't you stop me sooner?" And they were like, "We were hoping you would just stop on your own. Like, we didn't want to acknowledge it. It's incredibly embarrassing for all of us. This is terrible."
Also, the way the color coordination works is, like, none of them are almost mapped to the color of the suit. Like,
blue is the all channel, and it's like they go through it and they're like, or Quill's like, I mean, blue for blue, it's intuitive. And they're like, no, blue is for black, and black, they go through the whole thing. And then there's like a disagreement. They're like, I thought it was for red. And then they test it and yell in Peter's ear, I think, and he like collapses to the ground. And they're like, okay, yep, you're right. Red is for Peter's color. Or what?
Right. And I like how Drax finishes off with it. It's all intuitive. Makes sense. Perfect sense.
Yeah. So it's pretty great. And by that point, Nebula has finally cut a hole into the sphere, and they're all able to squeeze through into like an airlock type room and then seal the hole with some sort of force shield thing.
Right, and then we get our introduction to yet another like A-list actor of Nathan Fillion being told by what's the actress's name? She was actually in another one of James Gunn's projects, along with the lead villain, Chukwudi Iwuji, who is the High Evolutionary, named Peacemaker. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah. The John Cena TV series.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so Jennifer Holland, who I think might be in a relationship with Peter Gunn. I could be wrong.
Oh, okay.
Let me find out if that's true. I don't want to be making shit up. Like I do it all the time anyway. So. Yep. In 2015. So they were together in 2015 to the present. So
gotcha.
Of course you gotta hire your spouse on when you can, right?
Yeah, the classic Rob Zombie move.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, and it's really like using Nathan Fillion for this is so hilarious. Like he's such like a big name actor, or I guess he's like especially among nerds. Like he is
amongst nerds. He's definitely A-list. He's probably B or C in reality. Yeah, but also he's been in Marvel in so many different ways. Like recently, he is the voice of Deadpool.
Okay.
In the new Deadpool Wolverine movie.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I haven't seen that one yet, but like, yeah, I mean, I know there's been a lot of time. Like, I think they've tried to make him Green Lantern a couple of times, and it's fallen through.
They've tried to add him in so many different places, and it just hasn't worked.
But I think most people know him because from like all the Joss Whedon stuff, especially Firefly, but also Buffy, and of course Dr. Horrible, and
that was such a good musical.
It really was. And I guess most like more normie people probably would know him as Castle. I know he was like that like detective show that ran for a while.
Right. Well, now I think he's also in a similar one called The Rookie.
Okay, yeah, I've not seen that either. So he does have a little bit of like, mainstream appeal as well.
I mean, I primarily know him from Slither, which is also a James Gunn movie.
Oh yes, yeah. But it is funny to use him here in this part where he's like, I mean, he's a very minor character, but he does really steal the scenes that he's in. Like he's very entertaining.
Yes, he is a Master Karja. Is what they call him.
So he's like the head of like one of the Orgo soldiers, and is dispatched to find out there was a disturbance when they cut the hole in the thing. So they're it's like a trio of soldiers. They're headed to find out what's going on. Meanwhile, in the airlock, we have the Guardians are all quickly taking off their spacesuits. And underneath they have like red maintenance crew suits for the orgoscope so they can like blend in. Yep. Mantis suggests they put all their spacesuits in this like trunk over in the corner. They open a hatch and put them all in there.
Right, as Karja and crew show up. By the way, Karja was fucking with one of his subordinates by talking about how he got this really awesome new, basically a car with like the souped up engines, or a ship with a souped up engine. And he's like, yeah, do you know what I'm talking about? The guy's like, yeah. And he's like, you don't, because that's bullshit. I made it up.
And he's like, oh, I thought you said something different.
No, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so as they come in, like, who is it that Quill says is an idiot? I think it's Drax. Oh, yeah. Drax starts talking about something, and he's like, yeah, that guy's kind of dumb.
Because as soon as they burst in, like they have a good plan. Like Quill right away is like, "What are you doing? You just burst in here? The airlock? There's a hole in the like. If we hadn't already gotten that patch, like you could have compromised the whole ship. What the fuck's wrong with you?" And like the soldiers are all taken aback. Like, oh, we were just checking a disturbance, but now they're on the back foot and they're like, okay, you guys know what you're talking about. Yeah. And of course, Drax he's like, I am also angry. Being Drax. Yeah. But then that ends up helping because Quill and the commander, they're able to sort of bond over their incompetent subordinates.
Yeah, he's like, I got one just like it over here. This guy over on my other side, he's great. I love this guy. Dude, you're doing a great job.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, but this idiot, I don't know.
Yeah, I just want to kill him. Like, I would choke him out if I could get away with it.
Yeah, it's a great bit between the two, and him and Quill kind of bond over their idiots, I guess.
And so, of course, they're all kind of calmed down. They're like, we still have some work to do in here, but thanks for, I'm glad everything's okay.
Mantis sees the suits that they were in just start floating by.
Yeah, as the soldiers leave, she sees out the window that turns out that the locker she thought it was actually the trash chute. So they have ejected their suits out into space, and Quill's like, we don't have time. Like, we'll figure out how to leave later. We got to deal with why we came here first.
Right, but everyone blames Mantis for them ejecting the suit. She's like, what? I had nothing to do with this. You all could have told me that was the chute.
Yeah. How was I to know?
Yeah.
So the group ends up splitting up. We
get a bump between Quill and one of the High Evolutionaries, like Recorder stooges.
Mm-hmm. And then so we have Mantis and Drax, who go to sort of like, there's like a main sort of hub room where lots of stuff's happening. It's very hustle bustle kind of place.
Right.
And Mantis uses her power to touch like the door guard to let them in.
Yeah, to make him fall in love with Drax, so that she'll let him in.
Yeah, and again, it's all comedy, and like this bit's really good because like I feel like 10 years ago this scene would have played as like a gay panic thing, but it's not at all. Like Drax is just like, we're gonna do this again, okay? Right. And the guy's like, he's like, his name's like Beeble Snort or something gross like that. And he's like, what's your name? And he's like, Drax the Destroyer. Like,
that's a beautiful name.
Yeah. So he, of course, lets them in. And he's like, yeah, come back and see me when you're done with whatever you're doing. And,
right. It's funny how, pardon the joke, but how it's played straight. It would be a definite, like, making fun of the situation.
Yeah, like Drax does not seem grossed out that it's a guy. It's just like, I got to deal with this now. Like, it's so it's well done. I appreciated it. Yeah. Meanwhile, we see Quill and Gamora have made it to the records room.
Yeah, we get a bit of an info dump about what the High Evolutionary does, and the guy just creates species, which makes sense. That's in the name, I guess.
Yeah, so we have like the records wall is this huge sort of organic tube system, and Quill's like, I got this. So he goes up to the clerk and tries to seduce her.
Her name's Ura, I believe.
Yeah, and I think he's doing a pretty good. He's like, he's acting like that he's has been on the ship for a while, and he's like, when no one's looking, I see this. You smile to yourself, and it just really brightens my day. I look forward to seeing you all the time. And he's
right. Gamora ain't got time for this smooth talking bullshit.
Yeah,
he just pulls the guns like, all right, fucking let us in. Pull up the information we need.
Yeah, so this sort of introduces the second layer of the like disconnect between Gamora and Quill, in that Quill, he's trying to be like, the peacemaker when possible and not resort to violence.
He wants to use finesse, and she just wants to use a bat.
Yeah. She's gonna, roll attack, and he's gonna, roll charisma every time.
Absolutely.
And he's like, I had it. She was into me, and the girl's like, well, actually, I kind of thought you were a little bit of a douchebag.
Right. And he's like, you never do this. We never do this. And Gamora's like, speak for yourself, man. I always do this.
Yeah. So, again, so they're like arguing about the clerk is trying to get the file. We have Quill and Gamora and Nebula all arguing. And he's like, I wish you could remember yourself the way I remember you. And he's going on about how great she is. Mm-hmm. And Gamora's like, it sounds to me, you're describing her, right, Nebula. More than you are me.
Maybe like, shut up. No, he's not. No, she's not. No, he's not.
Yeah. And then there's like an awkward pause where Quill and Nebula both look at each other for a second, and they're like, maybe she's right. And then both of them are like, no.
Well, and Nebula's like, notice how like dark your eyes were. And she's like, yeah, my dad ripped them out as torture.
As a method of torture, yeah. And Quill's like, well, he picked some good ones to put back in. There's like you said, it's the continuation of this semi-love triangle situation here.
Right, and then of course the overly complicated delivery system. Like, it's almost like each section of the wall is handing off this little D20 to itself.
Yeah,
tubes. Just tubes. They exist. They're a thing. We don't need...
Yeah. It's like organic in a way that it doesn't... Like, tubes are organic. Like, you could easily make this a digestive tract or a blood, circulation system or whatever.
Right.
But
it's still cool,
Yeah. And so, of course, they get their sphere thing. But then suddenly security alarms start going off. We cut back to like the main lobby where Drax and Mantis are suddenly surrounded by a bunch of guards.
Yeah, Jennifer Holland's character basically spots them as like, those two are on the notification we received earlier today, basically about they're gonna come here.
Yeah. And Mantis is like, we gotta find, we can't fight all these guys off, we gotta find a different way. And Drax is like, or we could fight them, we could fight a bunch of guys, I like fighting guys. And she's like, please, let's not fight. And of course he immediately starts fighting.
Yeah. Well, she's the first one who kicks, but basically it's like he's going to kill somebody today.
Yeah. And interesting, I mean, like, you know, obviously he holds his own in the fight, but she, because of her she does a lot of really cool shit. I think she actually manages to take out more dudes than he does, just because she's making him do all kinds of weird stuff. Like,
yeah, she makes one think he's a kitty cat, another person just dance, which I enjoy. That's a good one. And then she hops on one and is like, go into a blood rage.
Yeah. So now it's basically, you know, like charm person, and now you've got an ally, this, you know, one raging, just fighting her own coworkers. Yeah. Meanwhile, now Gamora, you know, as the sirens are going off, she takes the clerk hostage, and they all kind of like escape into an elevator.
Right. And as they're leaving, she's like, hey, I'm going to kill this carrot-looking guy to show that I mean business. And Quill does talk her down. He's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave.
It's so great because she's like, this is that carrot-looking guy, and it cuts to him, and he's got like big bug eyes, like he's surprised. He's like, oh no! And then, like, as soon as they get into the elevator, it goes down. He's like, oh, thank God!
His buddy consoles him's like, we wouldn't have let her do that, man.
Yeah, like this guy, you see him for like 2 seconds, but the character design is great. Like, he's just a comedic little moment. It's
he is an orange guy with a green like mohawk, so it makes sense to me.
Yeah. And so while we've got Nebula and Gamora and Quill and the clerk all in the elevator, Quill is trying to apologize for like the rough treatment that Gamora is giving her, and he's like, so basically here's the deal.
Right, here's like, the recap of the Infinity Saga, right?
Yeah, it explains the whole thing about how she got killed and now she doesn't remember our relationship, and
she came back from a magic cliff.
Yeah, now I'm all heartbroken about it, and and the clerk is like, this is information I don't need, but she's just like saying, and Nebula's like, yeah, I mean, it sounds crazy, but that's true. That's basically what happened.
Yeah, you missed a couple important details, but yeah. That's it. That's what happened.
Yeah. So, yeah, when the elevator opens, they've arrived at like a security office, and Gamora wants to show everyone that she means business. She immediately...
She shoots Jennifer Holland in the leg.
Yeah. And then we cut to Groot, who like gets a call from Gamora, I think. I can't remember who calls him, but like basically, we need a rendezvous right away. Get here with the ship.
I think Quill sets it off.
Okay.
Yeah. So Groot's like, all right, I'm sailing it in.
Yeah.
Then Drax gets shot by Karja.
Mm-hmm. Gets shot, and like as he's falling, he gets shot. Like I think he gets shot in the back and then in the chest also.
Well, he gets shot in the chest first.
Oh, okay.
Karja's like, hey, big guy. And Drax turns and gets shot in the chest. Then Mantis picks him up and starts carrying him off. And that's when Karja shoots him in the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, like, so now the two crews are kind of, like, reconvening. And Nebula also ends up getting shot in the process.
But it's fine, because she could basically put herself back together.
Yeah. And so they all kind of get, like, over to like a computer over in the corner, and
they're surrounded. What is it? Bleedle Snort is getting ready to come in and blow them all up.
Yeah, and so Quill starts appealing to like the file clerk's humanity, and he's like, if you let me get on the computer over on the intercom, I'll speak from the heart. I can convince everyone. We can leave. No, you know, everything will be fine.
Right, and she's like, okay, I'll get you in. Go ahead, speak your truth. And he's like, I'm not an idiot. Anyway, I'm just deactivating all the gravity in the system.
Yeah. And then he looks over at Gamora and is like, I told you she was into me.
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of smooth, though, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, as you said, he's turned off the gravity, so now all the soldiers start floating around. Meanwhile, we know our crew has the magnetic boots, and so they're able to walk around, and at that point, Groot crashes the ship into the side of the building. and they're all able to just hop on the ship and fly away.
Well, when he comes in, he just goes, "I am Groot," and someone's like, "Yeah, that was pretty cool."
Yeah, which is again an ongoing joke for this whole movie, is everybody wanting to do cool shit and look cool.
Exactly.
But we go from that to another Rocket flashback.
Why?
And this
Why do
one
you have to do that?
Yeah, this one is one of the most heartbreaking ones. Like, it's we at first they're like, what's the future gonna be like for us? So we're all gonna go to this world.
See the sky? Is that the little bunny? Teefs is what she'll be called.
Or Floor.
Flora. Sorry, Teefs is the walrus. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Flora is like, is that the sky? And Lila's like, no, that's the ceiling.
Yeah, just wait. When you see the sky, it goes on forever. It's amazing. It's going to be so great when we get to the planet.
Yeah, and this is Teefs. The actual Teefs is like, I've been thinking, not about anything in particular. I just wanted you guys to know that I've been thinking.
Yeah, they're all evolving, and he's like, this is a new thing for me. It's interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, the otter is like, I think we should have names. I forget what her serial number is, but, at this point, they all just have, 89P13 being rockets, but they all have numbers like that. So she's like, I think, my name's going to be Lila. And they're like, okay, yeah, nice to meet you, Lila. And the walrus, he kind of has, like, a little bit of a British accent and just, like, a slow kind of delivery. And he's like, in spite of the fact that I think we all have these, mine are most prominent, so I think my name should be Teefs.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's very cute.
Floor, as we mentioned, is like, I'm on the floor, so I will be called Floor.
And everyone laughs at that. Like, they're just having a good time. It's really sweet. And then Rocket is like, someday we're all going to fly together, me and my friends. I'm going to pilot a ship, and we're going to travel around the galaxy.
Machinery.
Yeah, so my name is going to be Rocket.
Yeah, because he did see one earlier in the previous flashback where Rocket was flying around. He was really excited about that.
Yeah.
And once again, it is really good to have friends, says Lila.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we go back to the present where the crew is looking through the file that they retrieved from the orgoscope to get the
Rocket's surgery / torture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're seeing all of the past, and they're like, "Oh my god! Like, he never told us that he went through. Like, holy shit!"
Yeah. Even Nebula says that's worse than what Thanos did to me. Ma'am, are you sure? Like, I appreciate the empathy, but are you sure?
Yeah. I mean, the evolutionary clearly doesn't care about pain and suffering. But it felt like Thanos was trying to torture on purpose, whereas the evolutionary is just doing what it takes to achieve his goal. He's not intentionally causing harm.
Yeah.
He just doesn't care if he does.
And Thanos literally ripped her apart bit by bit by bit just for doing bad at something.
Yeah. It's a different level of brutality.
Yeah. Maybe it's because he's a cute animal. That's why. That just hurts that much more.
Right, yeah. But then they see the thing they wanted the file for, the security key has been deleted. It's gone.
And it was deleted earlier today.
They're able to... I'm not sure how they make this leap, but they're able to figure out right away that it was the recorder that bumped into Quill.
Well, they actually see who did the deleting, and it was the recorder.
Yeah, was it just like it shows his ID badge because he did it or something? And Quill's like, I saw that guy earlier. He's on the orgoscope. We need to go back. And then they're like, he has like a wraparound computer headpiece, kind of similar to the one Nebula has.
He's very much like the guy from Empire Strikes Back, the whatever body's called. I forget his name.
Yeah. So, of course, they're like, okay, he probably stored that information on his head computer.
Right. So if we go for the high evolutionary, everyone knows this is a trap. And Quill, being Quill, says, no, we know it's a trap, so this is a face-off.
Yeah. It can't be a trap if we know.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, surely. It absolutely can still be a trap.
Right. Because he's more powerful than you. It is a trap. Yeah.
So, Gamora and Quill kind of argue about that, and she's like, I did the job that you all paid me for. I'm not risking my life more. Like, I'm out. Like, this isn't for me.
Yeah. And Nebula does come in with the save. Like, she's like, hey, Rocket is our family, basically, as well as you. So we're going for him. We don't have time to fuck around with this.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we see like a Ravager has been captured.
Karja captured a Ravager.
Mm-hmm.
And a pet. Do they even name this thing? I don't remember.
I don't think so. There's just a very adorable fuzzy dog thing.
It's something they could put merchandise with.
Oh, absolutely. I haven't been looking for it, but there's almost certainly like plushies of this that people can buy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so he turns the Ravager over to Adam and his mom.
Right. Aisha's like, hey, show this guy we mean business, right?
And Adam immediately just burns him to a crisp. Just kills him, destroys him.
And she's like, I just wanted torture, not just flambe. Don't flambe.
Yeah, and he's like, how much more business can we show than this? And she's like, yeah, but we can't ask him questions now. He's dead. And he's like, well, we could talk to his colleague. He'll know. And she's like, that's a little animal thing. That's not going to help us.
Right. And then Adam, of course, is like, that didn't feel good to do that at all.
Yeah. Now this little animal thing looks sad. That makes me sad.
Yeah. So he's once again kind of dumb, but very dangerous.
Yeah. And so they're like, what do we do? And then they kind of just have like, get a little bit of luck thrown in their lap because the dead guy's walkie-talkie starts going off, and it's Gamora calling for extraction. She is, she's not going to join the Guardians for the next leg of this thing. She wants to reconnect with the Ravagers, and so of course Aisha gets the walkie-talkie and is like, yep, we can set up basically she is setting up a trap. This is definitely a trap that the Guardians don't know about.
Well, she's like, salutation, like, it's obvious though, right? No Ravager is going to say salutations.
Yeah. But somehow, Gamora falls for it. Like, she doesn't have any questions at all.
Yeah, she's like, here's my coordinates, this is where I'll be, pick me up.
Yeah. And then we see elsewhere in the ship, Quill is standing up on like the bridge, looking out in like a giant picture window into space.
Right, as Do You Realize by the Flaming Lips plays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everyone someday will die. Yeah. And we see Mantis and Drax like right outside the room, and Mantis is like, okay, go talk to Peter and say exactly the things that I said. Mm-hmm. And Drax is like, why don't you say it if you know the right things to say? And she's like, nobody listens to me.
Yeah, she knows. She's like, I can tell you whatever, but nobody pays any attention.
Yeah, but he'll listen to you. Just say it how I said it and it'll work. And so, Drax walks in and he uses this elaborate analogy. He's like, I feel like you've been hopping from lily pad to lily pad, these different women that you've loved, and it's not fulfilled you. And it's time you need to learn to swim. You need to be by yourself. And I mean, this is, advice people often get in the course of bad breakups and stuff. Like,
right, but Quill's immediately tipped off. He's like, wait, that made perfect sense.
Yeah, that's an analogy. I didn't think you were capable of analogies. And Drax is like, oh yeah, I know. Analogy, metaphor, simile, I know them all. And and like, I can't remember all of the things he lists, but the end one is like, this morning I made a poop that looked like a fish. That's a metaphor. And
even
Quill's
my body knows how to do metaphor.
Yeah, Quill's like, no, you're wrong. That's not how this works.
Yeah, he looks over the corner and sees Mantis. He's like, oh, okay, that's where that came from. Gotcha.
Yeah. And then Nebula rushes in and is like, we gotta hurry. Rocket is not doing well. Like, vitals are going down. This is dire. Which takes us to another flashback.
Probably the worst one, or not the worst one. No, it's coming up. But this is the one where the High Evolutionary seems drunk, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that this is where we're seeing him. He's beginning to experiment on himself, and he's getting like bad side effects from it. Mm-hmm. But he ends up like kind of lashing out at Rocket, and then like drags him out of his cage, shows him several different animals in various science tanks, and he's like, how is it possible? How could you know something that I didn't? I made you. Right. Everything that I know, like, you shouldn't be able to know anything that I don't. And Rocket's like, I don't know, it just made sense to me. Did it work? And he's like, of course it worked. Like, that's why I'm so angry.
Right. And then he basically gets we're going, these new creatures that you helped me create, we're going to the new world. We're going to Counter Earth.
Yeah, and Rocket's like, okay, I can't wait for Counter Earth. And he's like, you idiot.
You don't get to go.
Yeah. You're an early model. You are not deserving of the planet.
I believe he says it will be a perfect world, but you are a medley of cobbled together parts. so you don't deserve to go to the New World.
Yeah, so if you were having trouble finding the Frankenstein connection here, there you go.
Well, he's also like, your brain, however, that's something I'm going to keep and study.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that's weird, right? Like, if you have the living creature, why wouldn't you just take the living creature and just use that? Why do you have to specifically have its brain? Is it because he's wanting to duplicate the brain? Because I feel like if it was alive and in the body, he could do that better.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, his technology is way outside of, like, ours, but, like, you could do, like, EKGs and, like, see how the brain, like, the patterns, what's lighting up, all of that, and, you know, whatever mega technology beyond that he has.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like it would be more useful for a functioning living brain rather than, like, taking it out and putting it in a jar or something.
Yeah, but to add a little bit of extra stakes to this, he's like, no, we're going to destroy you, take your brain, and then we're going to incinerate all of your friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, that's hard information for Rocket to hear. And we go straight from that back to present, so we don't really get to, like, sit with that information for very long.
Right. And we land on, as we're going to Counter-Earth, Peter is confused because this looks just like Earth, except we have a statue of the High Evolutionary versus Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, and he's, like, holding a monkey to kind of, like, imply, like, evolution and everything.
Because that's not a charged whole thing, right?
Right, yeah. So their big ship ends up landing in, like, basically suburbia. You know, there's a big subdivision, all these houses that look the same. But when the people walk out of their homes, they're all human-animal hybrids. Mm-hmm. You know, they like it. You know, it's like animal heads with human bodies, basically, like a bunch of Ninja Turtle characters, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, and I think honestly, the turtle from earlier was probably a reference to that as well.
I think so. Yeah.
But also specifically, they all look like they're from the late 70s.
Yeah, it definitely has like it's when the suburbs were like the ideal. Everybody wanted to live in these perfect manicured lawns and these exact same homes and keep up with the Joneses and all that. It's definitely that sort of environment. And
kind of like somewhere Peter would have grown up, right?
Yeah.
Even though he left it in the 80s, so maybe slightly after, before his time. Yeah.
So as the Guardians all get out of the ship, they're all trying to talk to these, you know, hybrids, and they don't speak the same language, so it doesn't seem to be going well.
Right. Like one little girl tries to play ball with Drax.
Yeah, rolls a ball towards him, and he picks it up and just chucks it at her head, like full force. Yeah, and that obviously upsets the townspeople.
Who attack them back with rocks and bats and everything.
Yeah, just full-on riot. Again, kind of Frankenstein-y here, but sort of, you know, flipped. But we have, like, an angry mob here. Mm-hmm. But then they're able, like, I don't remember who suggested it, but someone's like, Groot, kaiju mode. And Groot just gets huge and just scares all the people away. He doesn't even hurt them.
With a big waggly tongue.
Yeah. So they all run away.
That causes a bat lady to fall over and skin her leg, basically.
Mm-hmm. And they immediately, like, rush over to kind of, like, try to help her. They give her, like, a med pack, I think. And, you know, they still can't speak the same language, but she sees these people aren't trying to hurt us. They're, you know, it seems like they have good intentions here. So she ends up
taking them home.
Yeah, they get to her house, and we get this extended comedic scene where, like, the Guardians are trying to explain what they need, why they're there.
Oh, by the way, did you pick up that basically the Bat family was, in my opinion, Latino coded?
Oh, okay. Well,
it was the music, the hairstyle, especially during that time.
Gotcha. Yeah, the dad definitely had kind of, that makes sense.
Yeah.
This scene is really kind of sweet and silly, you know, like, and the whole time we have Drax who just really wants to lay down on the couch, and they're like, don't fucking lay down on the couch. You're getting your boots on their clean couch. And he's like, but it's long. It's made. I could just lay on it. And they're like, no. It's designed so that multiple people can sit next to each other. And he's like, I can't believe that this doesn't have multiple purposes. Right. This is it's really good.
I definitely feel that, though. If I was Drax and this was home, I'd probably be doing that exact thing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like they're trying to explain to the bats what's going on. They end up drawing a picture of the recorder,
Yeah,
and the
everyone's like, that's a really good picture, Quill.
Can I hang that on my wall? And he's like, sure, yeah. Like, he's really proud of it. And I mean, it's, it's not awful, but it's not great. Like, it's just a crayon drawing of a face with the computer head.
Yeah, I would say it's C-level.
Yeah.
A C-level sketch, for sure.
But it does work. The Bat family's like, oh, yeah, we recognize that, and they just basically point. And they're like, there's lots of people like that at this building down at the end of the block or whatever.
Right. Quill sees their, like, 70s wood-paneled sedan. He's like, can we take that?
Yeah, can we borrow it? He does, like, the car driving motion with, steering wheel. And they're like...
The mom looks at the dad, and the dad's like, fuck. Here we go.
Yeah. Before they get in the car, though, Quill, like, gets, like, a pile of guns, like a comedically large... like armload of guns, and hands them to Groot, and he's like, you know what to do. Then they all get in the car, and there's like again an extended gag where like Nebula doesn't know how to get into a car. She keeps hitting the wrong button, and they get an argument about it, and she's just really brusque and frustrated, and it's just their will they won't they energy is hilarious in this.
But I feel like also that James Gunn witnessed something like this in life and added it to it. Like someone was trying to get into a car, and it's just like, you just push the fucking button. That's what you do.
And then there's kind of a good punchline to it too, because once she gets in, Peter starts trying to drive, and he's terrible. And she's like, "Oh, so you're lecturing me about car stuff?" And he's like, "Listen, I left Earth when I was a child. I've never driven one of these. Do you want to try?" Right. She's like, "Yeah, I'd like to try." And he's like, "No, you can't try."
No, well, too bad.
Yeah.
They have Mantis and Drax stay behind to guard Rocket's body.
Yes, yeah. So then we see Gamora is in the ship watching all of this stuff take place. She goes to check on Rocket, and is like, he's obviously still unconscious on the table, and she's just kind of talking to herself like, I just don't understand why anybody would be so loyal to just some inconsequential little thing like you. Yeah. She ends up walking around the ship. She ends up getting Quill's Zune and listening to music.
I believe always chasing rainbows.
Yeah, and she ends up finding a bunch of memorabilia from the crew, photos and just little bits of stuff.
It kind of reminds her that technically they had a life together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she sees that this whole crew loves each other and that once she was part of it. And I'm sure there's a certain amount of envy to that. Like, this looks like a good life that they have.
Right, exactly. Then we cut to just a random laughing, giggling girl running around a circle, but like vertically.
Yeah, it's like a hamster wheel kind of thing.
Yeah,
like,
but she's moving, not the wheel.
Yeah, the revolutionary, is like talking about like, okay, this is another development, but like everything she's doing, it's still just rote memorization. Like
they're always happy. They never tire. Like, they don't even break a sweat when they've been running for like hours.
Mm-hmm.
But they only do the things that we show them. They do them better. Mm-hmm. But only they can't come up with anything themselves.
Yeah, which I feel like, again, going back to Frankenstein stuff, like I think, his name being the High Evolutionary is sort of ironic because that's the one thing he can't do. He can make really, really elaborate computers, basically, right. But he can't make the AI. He can't make the leap from what I have created to a thing thriving on its own.
Right.
He wants it to evolve past him, and he's only been able to do it once, and it was with Rocket, and it drives him crazy.
Yeah.
Or I should say 89P13, because he will never call him Rocket.
No, never. He refuses to.
Yeah.
But it turns out that, hey, it's the people that I expected Rockets, or, P1, whatever, to his friends to come here. So he has one creature called War Pig,
mm-hmm.
which is a pig with a robot lower half. And what's the other thing called?
I feel like they do say it, but it's a while. I can't remember what they call it.
Anyway, it's like almost a turtle with a beak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a weird, more hybrid-y thing. Like, the War Pig is pretty much just a cyborg pig robot.
Right. And they scan Quill, and it's like, okay, he doesn't have any guns, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's safe.
Yeah, so they won't let Nebula in because her arm is a gun.
Yeah, she just is a weapon.
Yeah, so they escort Quill and Groot inside and leave her at the gate.
I'm surprised, though, because Groot also is just made of weapon, but okay.
Yeah. I mean, Groot can turn his arms into whatever, the same way that, I mean, I guess wood is a little less hardy than the metal that Nebula can do, but still...
Yeah, but it has so many other features,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we get another flashback where the recorder tosses Rocket into the cage. So this is the recorder, the guy who had the got the chip earlier or deleted the key. Meanwhile, Rocket is like assembling something really fast. He's got these little parts.
He's using the parts he stole from earlier.
Yeah. The other three animals are like, "What's going on? What are you doing, Rocket?" And he's like, I just found out the evolutionary isn't going to free us. He's not going to take us to the planet. He wants to kill us all. Yeah. But I know where an escape pod is. So if I can get us out of here, we can get on the ship and we can fly away and have our own lives and get away from all of this.
And this little card that he assembled, which he's kind of been staring at, or was staring at earlier on, he uses that to get Lila out.
Mm-hmm.
And Lila's like, it's really good to have friends. And then we hear bang.
Mm-hmm. And she just goes limp in Rocket's arms.
Yeah, it turns out High Evolutionary figured that Rocket would do this exact thing, and he shot Lila.
Yeah. And so Lila falls to the ground, and Rocket, gets down on his knees next to her, and she's just like looking up, and she's like, I see it. I see the sky, and it does go on forever. And then dies.
And then immediately Floor and Teefs are like, let's just go. Get us out of here. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah. Floor is panicking. She's still locked up, and she's,
she's like, Floor, Teefs, Rocket, go. Floor, Teefs, Rocket, go.
Yeah. The evolutionary gets on his, communicator and calls for more, backup to come in. But Rocket, in, grief and rage, just, jumps on the evolutionary's face and just, starts clawing.
The evolutionary literally says, you dumb idiot. You could figure out this one super complex thing, but you didn't realize that you weren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
But that's when, you said, he gets jumped.
Yeah, and so, Rocket just, claws the shit out of his face. Then, a bunch of guards burst in. There's a big shootout. And in the process, when the dust settles, Rocket looks over, and Floor and Teefs have both been killed as well.
Dude, that's so brutal.
Yeah. This scene, it's rough.
Yeah.
It's good to have friends, as we keep saying, and but it's really bad to lose friends.
Yeah.
At this point, Rocket has lost everything that he has known. Every person, everyone who's ever cared about him or been interested in him is gone. And we had Quill earlier talking about losing everyone he cares about, but he's slightly exaggerating, whereas Rocket is not. This is everything. This is Rocket's entire existence wiped away.
So Rocket steals a escape pod or ship, and kills as many guards as he can on the way, and he leaves.
Yep, escapes in a ship, and then we cut back to the present, where Drax and Mantis are standing outside the ship waiting.
Right, somebody's coming by on a motorcycle.
Yeah, and Drax just puts his arm out and clotheslines them like it's nothing. Right. And Mantis is like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "We're gonna go to where Quill went. We're gonna head to the ship." And she's like, He told us to stay here and protect Rocket, and he's like, yeah.
I never do anything anyone tells me.
Yeah, and it's totally protecting Rocket to go fight the bad guy. That's what we.
He lies to Mantis because he's like, fine, hop on and I'll take you to the ship, and she's like, it's just a couple feet that way. He's like,
but we'll just ride over there. And she's like, okay, and they get on, and he immediately just starts heading towards the evolutionary ship.
She's like, you're a dick.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we see Quill and Groot being led into the evolutionary's chambers, and Quill immediately sees the recorder and rushes over to him, and he's like, I know you deleted the passkey. I want the passkey. I need it right now.
Right, but the High Evolutionary sends off Warpig, immediately to go steal Rocket. Because he's like, okay, they've done the thing I want them to do by coming here.
Yeah.
So go.
Yeah, and so now the evolutionary is just going into his villain monologue moment, going on, but it's great. You get the scene a lot in various comic book and action movies, and it kind of becomes like a running gag for viewers. Like, okay, he's monologuing.
Yeah.
But here, Quill is like, why did every time I have to fight a guy like you, there's this boring ass monologue I gotta stand around and listen to? I do not care about any of your it doesn't matter. All we're here is to get that key to save my friend. I don't want to hear your bullshit.
Yeah.
Which, obviously the evolutionary is kind of taken aback.
But also it makes sense because this guy is the kind of person who likes to hear themselves talk.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you don't name yourself the High Evolutionary unless you think you're like the top. Yeah. But so we cut from that back to
Gamora taking a dump.
Yeah, we just like see her feet under a stall. She's still listening to music, and so her feet are kind of like kicking along with the beat. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly an alarm goes off, and she's like, "Oh no!" So she like jumps, bursts out of the bathroom, goes running and runs.
War Pig, holding on to Rocket.
Yeah, so we get a big fight between Gamora and War Pig. Again, she could have she's kind of said, I'm checked out, I'm not involved in this anymore.
Right.
But here, when it matters, she steps up and tries to rescue Rocket. And so, we get a big fight as they're like kind of bouncing around through the ship. And we cut from that back to Quill. Evolutionary is still kind of going on about like I'm making a perfect society. I'm not a villain. You think I'm the bad guy, but like I just want to make the universe better. Quill's like, I don't. Your society, your perfect society involves octopus guys selling meth to guys with cockroaches for heads.
Right, and then just random hyena guys beating other people with bats.
Yeah, and the evolutionary, like you kind of see like the mask drop a little bit, and he's like,
I did fuck up.
Yeah, I'm going to have to just wipe everything out and start over again. But I'm going to do it. It's going to be right someday.
Right. And, of course, that's like, wait, you're going to kill everybody? And, yeah, that's his thing, right? He just builds things and destroys them willy-nilly.
Yeah.
But then we have Adam showing up, Adam Warlock. Mm-hmm. He tackles War Pig and does a save.
Yeah, and Gamora's like, wait, what are you... War Pig's like, what are you doing?
Right,
like, we work for the same guy.
Yeah.
And Adam's like, yeah, but I want the credit for catching him. So
to save my society.
Yeah. So, while they're arguing, Gamora manages to get Rocket and get away.
But the town starts exploding as the High Evolutionary ship starts to take off.
Yeah, it's like this giant cube that's like buried in the ground, and it is like, as it comes up out of the ground, things are falling apart and everything. And meanwhile, Gamora manages to get into Warlock's ship and starts to try to fly away, but it immediately gets shot down.
Yeah. By the way, we see that little animal one more time, and it does a pee in fear because James Gunn is still a child in a man's body.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we got Nebula is calling Drax and Mantis. She's like, all right, stuff's going on at the evolutionary's ship. Can you all come get to it? Fly the ship over to where we are.
Right.
And they're like, oh, we can't do that. She's like, why not? And they're like, and then they just pull up next to her on the motorcycle. Right. She's like, you're supposed to be back there. And like, yeah, but we needed to help. We wanted to be more useful.
And Adam basically now sees that everything's exploding around him. He goes to save his mother Aisha, and as he almost gets to her, her ship explodes with her on it, or the ground explodes underneath her, killing her.
We also see Quill, up in it, as things are kind of going south there. He's like, all right, Groot, time to execute the plan. Groot reaches into his chest and pulls out a bomb that he throws, and as it explodes, he pulls out like 8 to 10 arms that are all holding guns.
Right, let's kill them all.
Yeah, he gives 2 guns to Quill, and they just have like a massive shootout. And
Groot says, "I am Groot."
Yeah, and they basically kill all of the evolutionaries' people, and the ship is continuing to rise up out of the ground. We get Drax, Nebula, and Mantis all jumping and catching the very bottom of the ship right as it breaks free from the ground. So now they're on board the evolutionary ship. Meanwhile, Quill tackles the recorder and jumps out of the window with him.
Right, and then Groot jumps right behind him, and the recorder's like, wait a second, like, it's pretty dumb just to jump off and try to kill me, or kill yourself.
Yeah, he's like, you're going to kill us both, and he's like, no, I'm going to be fine. And,
right, yeah, I'm just killing you.
Yeah, so Groot grabs Quill's back and then, like, grows his, like...
wings.
Yeah. So he slows things down, but they still hit the ground pretty hard, and they just are, like, dragging the recorder across the ground.
Killing him.
Yeah. At the end, they even have him, like, held underwater in, like, a puddle.
Yeah.
But Quill's like, he's still got the chip, so they pull the chip out of his head, and they've got
they take a knife to it. Like, everything about this is, like, as rough as it could get, right?
Yeah.
But then we cut to Mantis and Drax and Nebula trying to bust into the ship as it's leaving the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And they start freezing up and dying. Why does Nebula need to breathe? She acts like she's having a hard time. She's been in space before. She doesn't have lungs, I don't think.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it.
But Mantis and Drax, obviously, they would be dying.
Yeah. But they do manage to break into the ship, and when
Drax busts in.
Yeah, and they find themselves in, like, a big cargo hold full of jail cells that are all full of children.
Yeah, these little blonde-haired children.
Yeah, they look like Village of the Damned kids.
They really do. Is this a counter statement of, like, the whole Yahtzee thing?
Maybe.
Like, I don't know. I don't know what I feel like, because, the kids are supposed to be perfect with blonde hair.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's weirdness here.
But they can't... The kids speak a different language. The main thing they seem to say is joop joop.
Oh, yeah, joop joop.
Mantis and Nebula are trying to talk to the kids, and neither one of them are able to communicate. They end up getting...
shouting match, yeah.
Yeah, they're yelling at each other, which is scaring the kids. And we do get a bit here where, like, Nebula says something insulting about Drax, and Mantis is like, you leave him out of this. Like, he's big and stupid, and I love that about him. You don't need to be mean at him for being stupid.
And Drax is like, you think I'm stupid?
Yeah, and she's like, of course, but that's what's so great about you. And he's
but
like,
also forget that I just called you stupid because it hurt you.
Yeah, and so
that goes back on her whole ethics thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, this is kind of played for a gag here, but, like, if you really think about this, like, if your partner, every time that they upset you, erased that memory, like, that is a fucked up relationship. Like,
yeah.
Like that gets into, like, consent and stuff. Yeah. Like, you're no longer really choosing how you feel about this person. They're curating, like, and I mean, obviously they're not. It's mostly just a gag here, and we're not going to really get into the implications here. But, like, if you really think about it, that's really bad. Yeah.
So then we see that Rocket he is dying because he sees the whole bright light. Mm-hmm. He sees Lila.
Yeah.
They have a conversation.
Yeah, and so Drax and his crew are freeing the children, and but
Quill
back
and Gamora
on
are trying to revive Rocket.
Yeah, and Quill has the passkey now, so they're working on it, but he's, like, flatlining, and it's like any medical drama kind of thing you've seen, like, there's beeps and everyone's freaking out and trying, and there's a point where Gamora is like, give up, it's over, he's dead, and Quill's like, I'm not gonna give up, and he just keeps going at it and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, as you said, while this is all going on, we're in this, like, afterlife scene that's just like this beautiful white heaven-like hallway where Rocket and Lila are talking, and Rocket is crying, and he's like, I'm so sorry, it's my fault that you died, like,
we're flying with all of our friends, Teefs and Floor.
Yeah, and the sky is beautiful. We're in the sky. Everything's great,
and it goes on forever.
Yeah, and Rocket's like, can I come with you? And she's like, yes, of course. And then we cut straight from that to Quill really just not giving up. No. And he's like, punching, like doing, like, the heart, like, punch or whatever. And then we back at heaven. Lila's like, yes, you can't.
Not right now.
Not yet. You still have a purpose. And Rocket's like, I don't have a purpose. Like, I was just a random experiment from a crazy person. Like, I don't need to be here. Like, I don't belong.
Right. The guy who made us, just said we were stepping stones, right?
Yeah. And then Lila says one of, like, the key lines of the whole movie, which is, there are the hands that made us, and then there are the hands that guide the hands.
Interesting, almost like acknowledging, like, a supreme being, right?
Yeah, I feel like this is something that, like, a lot of Frankenstein stories try to get to the heart of, which is, like, So Victor took all these corpses and he made a thing that's alive, but now it seems to have a soul, and Victor can't find a soul. That's something else. So who did that? How did that get there? And that seems to be kind of what she's saying, is like, the evolutionary may be bad, the things he's doing may be cruel, but maybe there's something bigger at work here, and there is a reason that you exist.
Right.
She
calls him her silly raccoon, I believe.
Yeah, and she says the story was yours all along, you just didn't know it.
Right. He's like, I'm not a raccoon, and he gets brought back to
yeah, wakes up alive on the table. Yeah. Quill and Groot hug him. They're all obviously very excited. They thought this was the end.
Right. And Rocket actually says, Where's Nebula?
And then, they're like, what do you mean? And he's like, I see her call tag on the radio thing.
Quill's like, she's dead. And he's like, no, well, then why is her tag right there beeping?
Yeah. So we get this conversation between Nebula and Quill that's very confusing, because Nebula is on the evolutionary ship to rescue Quill, but Quill's not there anymore. He's on their ship, and they're like, great, now we have to switch and rescue each other again the other way. But Rocket says something while they're on the intercom, and everybody on the evolutionary ship is obviously just overjoyed that Rocket's okay.
Right, they're like, Rocket's alive, yay!
Yeah.
And then, of course, the High Evolutionary has to show up and say, we're not doing this, and he blasts Nebula one more time.
Yeah, so he's like, talks to Quill over the intercom. If you don't bring me Rocket, I'm going to kill all your friends.
Rough.
Yeah.
So then we shift gears, and we go to a poker game played by Sean Gunn / Kraglin, Howard the Duck / Seth Green, and Cosmo. And who's that other guy there? That he looks suspicious, like he was a police chief that did cocaine one time. Is that Lloyd Kaufman?
Yeah, you gotta love, James Gunn starting out at Troma. Yeah. He gives his friends opportunities, or pays tribute. We've had all of these MCU movies with Stan Lee cameos, and it's just, Lloyd Kaufman. It's great.
You know what I think's interesting? Like you said, the Stan Lee movies or the Marvel movies have Stan Lee as their cameos. I feel like we have Lloyd Kaufman as our cameos.
Yeah. I mean, he's shown up in, at least 3 or 4 movies we've done at this point. It's wild.
Yeah. All right. Note to self: pay Lloyd Kaufman to be on one of these casts.
Yeah, it seems like he must not be too hard to get.
I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, everyone's begging Kraglin, take back saying bad dog to Cosmo, because we're tired of hearing about it.
Yeah, and he's like, nope, can't do it. I can't. Yeah, she's a bad dog. I can't say otherwise, because I won't tell a lie.
Everyone's like,
But then they get a call, and it's Quill, and he's like, I need your help. And they're like, our help? We're the B team. Like, are you sure? But we don't find out what. He's recruited them for something, and then we go back to the evolutionary, who is yelling at his assistant.
The other recorder basically is like, boss, we've got to cut this and just go to the new colony. You can't do what you're doing here.
Yeah, it's too much trouble to fight over this raccoon. We need to move on. And he's like, no, this is our whole mission. If we don't get 89P13, how are we going to move to the next level?
Right. He's the only creature that I've created that can create its own inventions. Yeah.
Meanwhile, we have down in the hold, Gamora is trying to warn the kids about an upcoming danger. She's trying to tell them, you need to stay away from the hull. Yeah, clearly part of this escape plan. We're going to
cause an explosion on the port or starboard side of the hull.
Yeah. But of course, again, these children don't speak English, so they have no idea what's being said. Mantis tries, she's not helping, and again, Mantis and Gamora end up yelling at each other a bunch.
But Drax comes in.
Or not Gamora. Nebula. Why do I keep saying Gamora?
They're sisters. It's fine.
But yeah, Nebula and Mantis are yelling at each other. The kids get scared again.
But Drax comes in and he's like, all right, big dumb idiots. He starts basically treating them like they're kids, like they are. And he's like, he starts doing things, and he's like, yeah, my daughter used to like it when I made monkey noises. And he makes noises that are decidedly not monkey-like.
Yeah, and in fact, like, Mantis and Nebula are like, is that supposed to be a monkey? I don't know. But the kids are loving it. And, like, at first he's still talking in English, but he's just, like, kind of, like, getting them warmed up to him, you know, like, making them like him, you know. But then he just starts talking in their language.
Jib, jib.
Yeah, and they're like, you know, the kids are all nodding, they understand, and he's like, okay, I explained it, everything's good.
Right.
And they're like, why didn't you tell us you spoke their language? And he's like, why didn't you ask?
So maybe he's not so dumb.
Yeah. Well, we go back to Quill and Gamora and Groot. They're gonna go to the rescue, and we've kind of had a few moments of this, but I think this is the first one that really stood out to me, where, like, Gamora is getting frustrated at the whole I am Groot thing. Like, you know, it's the running gag in this that's the only thing he says, but everybody in the crew seems to understand him.
Well, and she used to know how he spoke as well.
Yeah, but she doesn't remember that, and she's like, you guys are just fucking with me. Like, he doesn't really say anything. Like, everyone else seems to know. They like, hop in a ship, and they fly up to the evolutionary ship.
At the same time, Nowhere comes in.
Yeah, Nowhere, the whole big giant skull planet ship thing flies up to the outside as well. The evolutionary is, like, yelling at all of his people, and he's like, all right, release the Hellspawn, kill everyone. I want that everyone living on the head of that dead god needs to die. Like, yeah. I want that whole place wiped out. Meanwhile, Warlock wakes up strapped to a gurney somewhere and breaks free.
Right, then he just, like, flies into Peter Quill's ship, knocking it off as we have this, like, massive space fight scene start breaking out.
Yeah, like, this is definitely, like, the Marvel movie moment. We have this huge space battle. We have the Hellspawn, basically, like, robot bugs, like, giant Starship Trooper type bugs.
Yeah, they're like the, they're the animal hybrids that are also hybridized with robots, right?
Mm-hmm.
The robot
robots. Yeah. So they're swarming Nowhere. We also see Drax, Nebula, and Mantis are running through the lower levels of the ship, and they come upon 3 giant, like, Lovecraftian horrors with just these, like, maws full of teeth, and just they look like slugs the size of buildings. Mm-hmm. They kind of freeze, like, oh fuck, what are we gonna do? And then we go back to, like, a dogfight in space with Rocket fighting against more Hellspawn, Quill and Gamora fighting Warlock.
Gamora threatens the little creature. She's like, I'll kill this weird thing if you don't back up.
And somewhere in the process, like, Quill and Gamora get knocked and, like, fall. And it's one of those, like, classic things where, like, you know, Quill lands on top of Gamora, and there's, like, this kind of, like, moment sexual where they're tension. Like, yeah, there's definitely a sexual tension there, like, you know, obviously Quill is reminded of previous times that he's laid on top of Gamora, and yeah. she's reminded that he's reminded of that, you know. Right. But
they're like, oh, wait about Adam, and then the ship explodes, and Quill's like, yeah, I put in a self-destruct, so
yeah. And at that point, Rocket lands next to them in his ship, so it seems like he's going to rescue them. Then we cut back to the crew on the evolutionary ship, surrounded by the giant horrors, and Mantis just uses her power and just comforts them. She's like, "Oh, they're fine. They're just big kids, and they're scared. Like, they're not
to eat batteries, not people."
Yeah. So then we go back to Nowhere, where Kraglin is trying to use his arrow, and he's still having trouble. But then he sees Yondu, the ghostly spirit of Yondu.
Michael Rooker couldn't stay away.
Yeah. So he's like, I believe in you, you know, and of course it works. Kraglin whistles, and the arrows flying everywhere, just killing dudes left and right.
But it gets stuck in the wall.
Yeah, it gets stuck, and he's, like, whistling, and it's, like, shaking. He can't get it pulled back.
Right, one of the abominations is coming at him, or the Hellspawn is coming at him, and that's when Cosmo jumps in, uses 2 walls, and smashes the thing together.
Yeah, and Kraglin is like, I knew you were a good dog. And she's,
he said the thing.
Yeah, and she's all happy, and she's like, I knew you didn't really think I'm a bad dog. Right. She's all happy.
I love the idea of her thinking that someone thinks she's a bad dog. It, like, gives her anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah, as a dog lover, this whole arc was just so cute. It was very sweet. On the ship, again, the other recorder is like, we need to cut our losses and get the fuck out of here.
Right.
Like, this is...
She's like, oh my God. Like, she starts talking kind of like almost borderline religious. Because she keeps talking about God.
Yeah, she says, stop for God's sakes. And he's like, there is no God. That's why I stepped in.
Fuck you. That is one of the best evil lines ever.
Yeah, definitely a Frankenstein thing. You know, in the name of God, now I know what it feels like to be God.
Right. But also, like, she realizes, oh, the boss has lost his shit.
He is crazy.
She pulls a gun on him, and she's like, I'm taking command. We're leaving.
Yeah, and then all of the other guards in the room do the same. So, like, the evolutionary is surrounded by people pointing guns at him, and he ends up using his, like, energy blast, and he just, like, knocks them all back.
Right.
I think
but he also kills his ship's controller, who's, like, the pilot from...
Yeah. Wow. So he goes over and he gets on the intercom to talk to his crew, and he's like, all right,
kill everything.
Yeah, kill everything on the ship, bring me 89P13, kill everything else, and evacuate the ship.
Yep. Well, so we know a big badass scene's about to happen because we get No Sleep Till Brooklyn by the Beastie Boys.
Yes. Yeah, this scene kicks ass. It's so good.
Yep.
So we get the... first, Quill and the crew, like, they burst onto the ship, and they're like, we're here to rescue you. But then the three, like, Lovecraftian horrors come, like, galloping into the sort of, like, ship port thing,
right, with
the docking bay.
On top of them.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, okay, I guess you don't need rescued. Let's get the fuck out of here then.
Right. Let's all do a cool walk as the whole crew, like, or the whole Guardians assemble.
Yeah, so they're going to leave, but then it's like, or the crew that's been on the evolutionary ship, they're like, we can't leave. There's a bunch of kids. We need to save them. Like, this is what the Guardians do. Like, we weren't just doing this to save Rocket. We're still the Guardians, you know.
Right. But not only does the whole, like, regular Guardians fall in, Gamora actually falls in line last.
Yeah. So, like, No Sleep Till Brooklyn, like, really just, like, ramps up at that point. We have them walking in slow motion. They walk down this hall where there's, like, a million bad guys, and they just fucking destroy all of them.
Like, the level of ultra violence that occurs here is actually surprising for a PG-13 movie. Like, this should probably be R.
Yeah, and I mean, it's gleeful violence. It is like having, like, this looks like a scene out of Deadpool more than, like, you know, a standard Marvel movie.
But I guess because most of the enemies are CGI, it's okay.
Yeah. And, like, you know, sometimes you want to fight where, like, it's like a who's gonna win, we don't know. Like, the bad guy or the good guy gets knocked down and finally rises up at the very end.
But this is
that's not this fight.
The good guys cannot lose this fight.
Yeah, they are just mowing the bad guys down like it is nothing.
Right.
And you know, the No Sleep Till Brooklyn is the perfect song for this, and it's just you can't watch this song or this scene and not be like, hell yeah, you know, it's just so good.
Yeah. Then we get Drax and Gamora actually break off to go save the kids, which they do.
And meanwhile, Nebula and Kraglin, from their separate ends, pilot the two ships to get close to each other.
Right, with Cosmo using telekinesis to kind of link them up finally.
Yeah, make like an airlock between the two.
By the way, Adam Warlock busts in as well and yells at Groot, just guttural screams, and then passes out.
Yeah, Groot kind of carries him, and then we have all the captives escaping onto the ship, all the kids. We have Cosmos, like, just being super strong. You know, like, this is hard to hold this concentration.
Mantis even has to use her power to kind of be like, hey, you're super strong. You can keep doing this.
Yeah, like, you are the goodest dog, basically. You know, they're everybody's working together. It's really beautiful teamwork here.
And then Rocket's like, I got to go free the rest of them. And Peter looks at him kind of confused. He's like, well, we got all the kids. The kids are good. He's like, no, everybody else.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like animals that he has found that he wants to save. And we also see on Nowhere, Warlock has woken up next to Groot, and, you know, Groot looks at him and it says, I am Groot, and Warlock's like, what did he say? and I think it's Nebula's like, he said everybody deserves a second chance. Yeah. So, yeah, then we go back to the evolutionary ship where Rocket gets to all the animals, and of course, first thing he finds is a whole cage full of little baby raccoons.
Yeah, with the Latinized name for some reason. With this,
yeah.
And
but then
like,
at the very bottom,
I guess I am a fucking raccoon.
Yeah, it says common name raccoon, and he's like, but of course he opens the gate, and they all like climb all over his shoulders. He's got like,
he's like a mama raccoon.
Yeah, it's really, really cute.
Well, the high evolutionary can't let that stand, so he has to arrive, and basically, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to let you go. I'm going to kill everything, and I'm going to kill you and take your brain.
Mm-hmm. And, yeah, Rocket's like, no, I'm going to stop you. And he's like, listen to me, 89P13. Right. And then Rocket's like, the name's Rocket.
Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah.
Blast him.
Like, took us 7 hours of movie to get to him like really owning his name, and it's so satisfying. It
is actually, to acknowledge that he is in fact a raccoon.
Yeah, again, James Gunn knows how to do a payoff. Like this movie is full of them, but I feel like this one especially is just, it's a minor little thing for him to finally acknowledge that he's a raccoon, but yeah, it's just. He's finally found his identity. He's confident in who he is, and so then we get this, big fight between Rocket and the evolutionary.
Well, also Quill and Gamora show up and start kicking the evolutionary's ass as well. So it's like a group tag team of ass whooping on the high evolutionary.
Yeah, and so it ends with I think a Gamora again. Or no, I guess Nebula did it last time, but this time Gamora sneaks up behind him and impales him. And when he falls to the ground, she holds onto his face as he falls and just rips his mask off.
Yeah, so as he slides off her blade, I think that his face falls off at the same time. They're like, she ripped his face off!
Yeah, and so everyone's like, what the fuck?
Mask.
Yeah. And he's like, all I wanted was to make things perfect, and you had to ruin everything. And we're seeing his face now. It's like, skull and muscle, he doesn't have a nose.
Because Rocket literally ripped his face off.
Mm-hmm.
But Rocket then says, you didn't want to make things perfect. You just didn't like them the way they were.
Yeah. And Drax basically kind of looks at Rocket like, okay, this is your kill, go for it. And Rocket's like, nah, I'm not going to. And he's like, why? Why wouldn't you kill this guy? He's done everything awful to you.
To be fair, I would have killed him.
Yeah. Right, yeah, absolutely. But, this is the classic superhero thing. We got to be better than the bad guys. So he's like, I'm not going to do it because I'm a freaking guardian of the galaxy.
I'm not a killer. I'm a guardian of the galaxy. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. All right, anyway. So they go and they free the rest of the animals. Quill's like, all right, we got to go. But Rocket's like, no, we got to free everything.
Yeah, so we cut from them starting to open cages to back to nowhere where they look up at the evolutionary ship and there's just a stampede of every kind of species you can imagine, including those 3 Lovecraftian horror things, all
that
coming right at the ship.
Her babies.
Yeah,
my babies.
Yeah, and the people on nowhere are like, do we have room for all of this? What the fuck? But yeah, so they all kind of get on there, but if
Cosmo loses strength, she can't hold the ships together. So the high evolutionary ship starts slipping away.
And everything has managed to get over except for Quill. He is jumped right as it splits, and now he's just no spacesuit, just floating out in space, which...
Well, he looks like he's almost about to make it onto nowhere, except he runs into debris, and that kind of bounces him back.
Yeah. And he starts you can tell he's starting to freeze and his face is starting to swell up, which I believe that's kind of accurate. That's what would happen to you in space, except I think it would be almost instantly lethal. You would basically just explode.
Yeah, once you start... Well, you're going to survive in space for a couple seconds at least. Maybe a minute, I think is what I heard before the radiation will get you.
Yeah. So
he's got about a minute to get across.
And Groot tries to reach out to him with his, magic extendo plant arms, but the vacuum of space is too powerful. He's not going to be able to do it.
But wait, who do we know who can fly through space?
Yep, Warlock comes bursting out, grabs Quill, flies him back in, and Quill's collapsed on the ground. his face is all swollen and weird looking. Like he looks like he's been stung by 1,000 bees.
Yeah.
And we get a call back where he's like, "Did that look cool?"
Yeah.
And it did. I mean, he looks awful. He does not look cool.
Right.
But
And
everyone's like,
yeah, that was cool. That was really cool.
Yeah.
By the
so
way,
they all.
we're 3 for 3. I feel like where Peter Quill has somehow like almost died, but somehow hasn't. And this is the second time he's been frozen to death in space almost.
Right.
So
we get this sweet moment where like everybody on all the Guardians kind of have like a group hug around Quill, and like Warlock is just standing there, and at first he kind of puts his hand on somebody's back, like pats it, and then he just leans into it and like joins the hug.
Yeah.
And it's really sweet. But then we see that Gamora is watching this, and she does not join. She just kind of like walks off.
Right. It's almost like she's trying to sneak off in the middle of all this, celebration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we see a little later, Gamora is standing up on a balcony watching people, just kind of thriving in nowhere.
Groot comes up to her and just says, "I am Groot."
And she's like...
She understands.
It was good working with you too. She's like, oh, like... and so, obviously this implication here being that, like, you have to connect to Groot to be able to understand Groot. Like,
right.
He's... Whether it's, like, telepathy or how it works, but, like, she's part of the team again, whether she wanted to be or not. Yeah, she is connected there. And she's, like, kind of touched that's how it's working, But, so she heads to the docking bay.
Trying to sneak off one more time, but this time Quill's waiting for her.
Yeah, she's gonna leave in with the Ravagers, but yeah, Quill's there, and she's like, I'm still not who you want me to be, and he's like, I know, but the you that you are is pretty good too. Like, he's kind of coming to terms with like, we had our chance, it's over. I mean, this felt very real to me as someone who has recently gone through a divorce and has befriended my ex and everything. Like, there is this kind of sweet moment where it's like, what we had wasn't meant to be, but like we can have something different and new now.
Yeah.
It felt very, very real and sweet. And to kind of like close it out and like I think she starts walking, so they're not looking at each other, like back to back, and she's like, I bet we were fun, and he was like, you wouldn't believe. So yeah, it's real. It's just, I mean, it's a tearjerker moment where it's like, they just couldn't make it work. But it's very like bittersweet, which is it was really good kind of end to their sort of like romance. And so she gets into her Ravager ship and leaves. And then we have Quill sitting down with the rest of the Guardians. And he's like, so I think it's time. I need to leave. I need to go spend some time figuring things out. I have family back on Earth that I've never met, that I haven't met since I was a kid. Like, right. I need to take some time and see what's on Earth for me.
And Mantis has decided she's going to go off and do her own thing as well.
Yeah. And Drax is like, cool, I'll come with you. And she's like, no, that's the point. Like, I have to get out there and figure things out for myself too. Right. And Nebula's really quick to jump in, and she's like, Drax, I need you though. Like, you have a purpose. I need your help here. Yeah, I need your help with the new population because you were clearly meant to be a dad. We've got all these kids. You're great with them. And Rocket's like, oh, so you're going to lead the Guardians? And she's like, no. I'm leading nowhere. I'm the mayor of the city.
And Rocket, like, oh, so we're breaking up. There's no more Guardians. Yeah,
the group's over. And Quill's like, no, of course not. You're the leader of the Guardians. Like,
what?
Like you're going to be better than I ever was. Like, you should have been the leader all along. Yeah. And everybody in the crew does like the chest pound salute to Rocket, like, wherever we're going, like you're the captain now, and like showing the sign of respect to him.
Yeah, and this is where Groot in actual English says, "I love you guys."
Yeah,
family.
Which so good. Like, I like the payoff with Gamora understanding. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, I think it's pretty clear the implication is that now we, the audience, are part of the Guardians. We are now connected to Groot as well because we understood him.
That makes sense. I like it.
Which, yeah, it's. I mean, like, it's. It's such a powerful moment. Like, he says it, and just like everyone's just like, yeah, we're all we all love each other.
Well, yeah, and then we cut to a scene where Peter is leaving, and he hands Rocket his Walkman. He's like, "This is for you."
Yeah. As he leaves, there's like speakers on poles all over the city, and they start playing "Dog Days Are Over" by Florence and the Machine.
Fucking good song, so good.
Yeah, it's such a great song to end this too. Like, it's just such a triumphant song. And so we see Groot dancing along to the music, and then Rocket's kind of like getting into it too. He's dancing, and
everybody joins in.
Yeah, we have like everybody in the city dancing. We see Drax kind of like wave goodbye as Mantis goes with her babies to go on her new journey. Yeah. And we see Gamora back on her ship, reunited with the Ravagers, and it's like she's like back with her family, but also you can see there's a little bit of like melancholy where she's like, these guys are great, but like my time with the Guardians was special too, Yeah. But then, and then back on Nowhere, everybody's dancing now. We get one additional cutaway where we see Quill on Earth, and he knocks on a door, and we have like a woman answer. It's like a black woman, and he's like, I think maybe I'm at the wrong place. I'm looking for, I forget what his name is.
Name, yeah.
So, yeah, something Quill anyway. And he's like, oh, she's like, yeah, he's back here. So Quill sits down next to his grandpa, who is shocked to see him. And then we go back to Nowhere one last time, where the last holdout who said
Never
dancing
dead.
was stupid
Yeah.
is surrounded by dancing children, and like every good dad who is maybe most of the time serious, when it's really necessary, he can be fully silly with the kids, and he does the cutest, goofiest dance, and it's just adorable, and everybody's having a great time. And that takes us to credits.
Right. Well, that takes us to most of the credits, because we do have a mid-credit scene.
Yeah, of course it's a Marvel movie, so we're going to get a couple additional scenes.
Right, where we have Rocket and crew, including Adam, on like a desert planet, and he's asked, so who's your favorite musical acts?
So we have like a young girl who we've not seen yet or before.
She's one of the rescued kids.
And her favorite bands are Britney Spears and Korn.
That's a thing. That's kind of a disparity, but hell yeah, rock on.
Yeah, that's pretty great. And then we have Adams
is Garth Brooks.
Oh yeah, the man Garth Brooks. Adams is Adrian Belew, both solo and his work with King Crimson.
All right, man. I respect that.
Yeah, very specific call out. And then Rocket what is he put something on? I can't even remember what his choice. Like, he actually plays something on the Zune that's like his.
He's playing the Come and Get Your Love from the original Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and he's like, this was a classic,
Yeah.
But then they see like they're with like a bunch of like villagers on this planet, and the villagers see something scary and start running in the opposite direction, and they're like, oh, I guess that's our cue. Time to do what we do best. And so there's like a stampede of some kind of creature that they're
and this seems like a weird thing, especially for Rocket.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, because they're like, do you feel a little bad about this? And he's like, no, I mean, they're defenseless, they need our help. But it's like, are we gonna, I mean, it cuts away, we never see what happens, but I mean, the implication here is that they're gonna kill this herd of creatures, which seems, like you said, seems against what the entire movie has been. But maybe Rocket's got another plan, but we never see it.
Listen, his plan involves Gunn. I don't know what he's doing with that gun.
Yeah.
I don't trust it, but yeah.
Yeah, we also see in this that the one crew member that we hadn't seen, Groot, there's like a
massive.
Giant, there's a giant rock outcropping that they're all sitting against, and it's Groot. He stands up, kaiju style. And then we go back to credits for a little bit, and eventually, the very, very end of the credits, we get a scene where Quill is just sitting at a table with his grandpa, and they're like talking. They're just having the most mundane conversation about like the guy that mows their grass. And they're just like arguing. They're just like, well, I mean, I don't know, like, I guess I could mow the grass. It's fine, And it's just like, this is just, and then like the final thing is like the legendary Star-Lord will return. So obviously, the boring Earth life is not going to keep him occupied for very long. He's going to get tired of this, as we all knew.
Yeah, once you've been to space, I mean, there's not much going back, Not for long, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's a funny little gag to end the movie on, which, again, I mean, every Marvel movie has to have these extra credit sequences, but usually they all tend to obsess over, like, the next 2 or 3 MCU movies.
They set something up.
Right. Yeah, but this one, it's all housed within the Guardians. We're not getting anything about what Captain Marvel's doing or Doctor Strange or anything. It's just our Guardians. So I appreciate that James Gunn was able to convince that the Guardians movies should kind of stand alone.
Yeah, good call there for sure, and good way to end a series.
Absolutely, yeah. I think. I suspect we'll get more Guardians movies, but I'm pretty sure this is the last James Gunn one, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now that he's moved over to the DC universe, I'm sure it'll be the last one for a few years.
Yeah.
Until DC inevitably implodes one more time, and we have to reboot the reboot of the reboot.
But hopefully before DC falls apart, we will get to watch the James Gunn Creature Commandos series.
Yeah.
We're going to finally get some animated comic book Frankenstein. And,
hell yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be so good.
I hope so. So I have a theory about what's going to happen with Mantis, and I think it's kind of circulated as well. Basically, so have you heard of the Celestial Madonna?
I don't think so.
So that's another thing, I think, where Mantis gets pregnant with, like, Space Jesus. And I think that has something to do with Adam. I don't remember exactly. So maybe they're going to do that. Hopefully not, though, because that was really weird and uncomfortable. So maybe we don't do that, or maybe we skirt around it. Who knows? Just look it up if you're interested in the lore of Mantis. So
interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's clearly a lot of room to... But it's the thing, setting up that Quill is going to come back, but also making Rocket the captain. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm definitely interested to see this new crew they're forming with Kraglin and Rocket and Groot together and Cosmo. I would love to see some stuff with them. But
listen, give Cosmo her own movie.
Yeah, absolutely. She's the best.
A good girl.
Yes.
Or a good dog, whatever you want. All right. Well, anything else we got to say?
I think that's it for this one.
All right, Anthony. It's been a couple weeks. I'm obviously off my game. Still, I've never really been on my game. But let me go ahead and pull up what we're supposed to be doing.
So you may not be excited about this one.
Oh God, what are you doing to me?
So next week we are going to be talking about Frankenstein Legacy, which is we recently talked about it over on Patreon, I believe. It's a British movie that's pretty new and is apparently very bad. I think that it got a lot of hate from critics. Maybe they're wrong. Who knows? I have not seen it yet. But it definitely did not get a lot of praise. I will say that.
Yeah, the brand new 2024 one.
Yep.
All right, well, let's see how that turns out next week.
Yeah, so
right,
join
anything
us.
Anything else we got to say?
I think that's it.
All right, Anthony, where can they find us?
So yeah, you can find us on all the socials at the Frankencast, including TikTok.
We got a TikTok now?
Yeah, we just started it. There's nothing on it, but
we're gonna get there.
Yeah, follow now, and you'll find out whatever we're gonna do over there.
Whatever we're gonna. Yes, yeah. It's gonna be fun or goofy or both.
Yeah. Hopefully, we'll find some interesting stuff to do over there. You also can always still email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com or find us over on YouTube. And as always, you can find us at patreon.com/thefrankencast, where we're currently in the middle of another comic book related thing as we watch as we read the Punisher Frankencastle series. So yeah, if you're into the comic book stuff, there's plenty of that over there. We have done a lot of Creature Commando stuff in the past. So we're definitely preparing for the TV series when it happens.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we'd love to have you over there. You can do the free trial and all that, and see if it's for you.
Yeah, check us out. All right, well, if there's nothing else to be said, to be continued. Excelsior!
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.